What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about Silent Hill F, give you guys my full review after one playthrough, and I want to make that very apparent because this is a Silent Hill game, but I really think this element is probably more highlighted in this Silent Hill game than any other. Replays are necessary, unless, of course, you look it up. Like, you just do stuff like that. The game gives you something. I have my own theories in my head. I actually haven't looked any deeper into them because I kind of do want to be surprised, but they give you some, but they don't give you everything. And from what I have heard without specifics, because I haven't seen specifics myself, the second playthrough is actually much better than the first because a lot of context is given. So the story element is actually highlighted and actually better. So that's just part of what I've heard, but I'm going to be basing this entire thing just off the first playthrough because, look, honestly, when you buy this game, most people can't even beat a game for the first time, let alone 2, 3, 4 times in order to get the true ending, right? So, I mean, I think that's just a statistical fact, so I want to go based off that. Here's the deal. I really love this game. This game has some huge flaws. We're going to talk about them. I think I've isolated 2 of them. But overall, I had such a blast. I feel like Silent Hill is back. And that's just me. I mean, I really like where we're at. And I really like this game. This girl, Hinako, is such a troubled individual. And man, she goes through the ringer. The ultimate freaking, I don't think anybody has suffered in a game in a long time as much as this sweet girl has, and it's something to watch and it's something to play, to be honest with you. But I just really, I want to stress that I really did enjoy my time, even though I saw people say, I actually didn't like it the first time, but the second time made me think, okay, wait, the story is actually onto something. I actually felt that now. I thought the story, look, it's got, to me, a lot of signature Silent Hill vibes where it's drip feeding you. It's giving you some signals as to where it's going, but it's not giving you everything. You have to think about it. You have to read, going into this game. We saw so many reviewers say, read the journal. And the journal, man, it's something I opened every 5 minutes. I wanted to see anything she was writing down. The game's deep. The game just has so much going on and so much that you can kind of learn as it's going on. And I feel, upon actually sleeping on it, that I'm like starting to piece together what actually has happened. Now, at the end of the game, it gives you a really big signal as to kind of what's going on. And I called it to myself like 3 hours in. I won't get into specifics because I don't want to spoil it for you, but let's just say like a character says something or there's something you read. There's something very early on in the game where I thought, you know what, is this thing going on? And then I really think that thing is going on. So I felt really good about that. Look, let's focus on the main weakness and then I'll kind of rattle off some strengths of it, okay? So the main weakness is still the combat. Now, here's what I'll say. I made a standalone video just talking about the combat. I was about 3 hours in when I made that video. The overall game actually only took me about 8. Took me about 8 hours to beat this game, and I know they add a couple things in like subsequent playthroughs, but also you're going to be better at it, and upgrades carry over and all that jazz, so I feel like it might take slightly less, each playthrough, but it took me 8 hours. The combat did grow on me. I'm not going to lie to you. Just like I didn't lie to you that I feel the combat is actually very, very weak, I also won't lie to you and say you almost kind of embrace it as the game goes on. Here's what I'll say. By hour 7, by hour 8, as I'm finishing up the game, I was enjoying the combat more than I was enjoying it in hours 1, 2, 3, 4. I, at no point, think the combat is good. I also feel the game relies far too heavily on just throwing enemies at you. And, those last couple hours I took to this age-old method. Jack Sparrow, actually, from Pirates of the Caribbean, says this quite often. We must fight to run away. Now, in this case, I literally just ran away, okay? There's some sequences, especially when it comes to weapon durability, because I never really ran into an issue, but I was playing everything on story mode, okay? I am an idiot when it comes to puzzles. I need things spelled out for me. Now, I will say, I got a lot of those puzzles on my own. Not all of them. I'm not gonna lie to you. I looked some up, but quite a few, I'd say the majority, I figured out the puzzles on my own, but I played them on story difficulty. And then when it comes to the combat, I started on hard, and then I went down to story because it was just too crazy. By the end of the game, I had everything. I had all of these things that could just give me, I really only needed health. So I just had so many items that would give me health. I got several upgrades, so my stamina was so much better. I was able to kind of, whack-a-mole them, kind of like going crazy. And my weapons, like I always had a good rotation of 3. I always had toolkits. So I think the game kind of gives it to you as you go. Towards the end, like towards the final battles, that game will give you like 9 items, right? So all of this to say what? Okay, as the game goes, I think it just gives you more, and you're becoming more powerful, and it's not nearly as bad. Is it still bad? Yeah, and towards the end, yeah, you feel better, but you've never seen so many enemies, maybe in a Silent Hill game, period, towards the end of the game. Now, sometimes you're supposed to run. Sometimes it's kind of unclear. Sometimes I think you're supposed to fight them, and there, again, multiple times, I would say second half of the game, I just ran. As Hinako, whenever I was able to outrun an enemy, that is the path I chose, because it's like I'm not going to waste my time doing the fighting because it's just not good. So I'm going to just stand on that still, that I love the game. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I don't love it, because overall as an experience, I freaking adored it. But the combat did its very best to ruin it as much as humanly possible, okay? The only other weakness, by the way, that I would say is I mentioned the story obviously several times here. I guess, and I said in the beginning, like, many people wouldn't go through it more than once. And look, sometimes I wouldn't go through a game more than once. I do actually think that's a weakness. I understand that, a lot of like psychological horror games do it. I know Silent Hill games do it, but I think this game, even though I started to get it and I feel like I'm on to like the key of the game, I feel like other games, and look, we have to kind of compare this to Silent Hill 2 because it literally just came out last year. So people might be just jumping into Silent Hill last year and now they're playing Silent Hill F. This is a game that I think gives you less. Like, you could play Silent Hill 2 Remake once, and I think you can get an okay amount of it. This is less than an okay amount. So I would just put that in the weakness category, where I do like the story, I like the characters, I like the themes. Actually, I really love the themes. But you're really going to need to do this twice, at least twice, if not 3 or 4, or you just have to watch it. Everything else, this game is such a beautiful, it is deeply disturbing. Okay, there's some things that go on in this game that I haven't seen in a game, because, at the same time, I don't play a lot of games like Silent Hill F, okay? So, and I can't spoil it, but let's just say there's some very deeply disturbing things, not even just the themes, because there's some stuff playing around, and, her dad's got a lot of stuff that goes on in this game, along with many other characters, but specifically the dad. But there's some moments with her as a main character that, you almost don't want to look, even without always showing it. And I think that's what this game is really, really good at. Some of the most, there's some bloody moments, let's just say that. There's a lot of that stuff on the ground, it'll explode. A lot of those times they won't show it. They'll show parts of it, or they'll show a beginning, and then they kind of let your mind do the rest of it. And I think that's actually where Silent Hill games are always so smart, is okay, you fill in the rest, right? And this game, it gives you some, and then it kind of just lets you imagine what goes on afterwards. And I can think of maybe 8, 9, 10 moments, and that's a lot. It's more than 2 handfuls. I can think of a lot of moments in this game where it's just holy God, why are they doing this? In a good way, because look, if it's so disturbing that it makes you turn it off, then obviously maybe it worked too well, but actually it kind of failed, right? It needs to hook you, and the game does. The game hooks you, I think, immediately with the themes, with the tone, the visuals. This game is so beautiful. I saw a lot of people talking about the performance. Here's what I'll tell you. I played this on base PS5. I had maybe one stretch where there was some hiccups, some frame rate kind of stuttering, and it was towards maybe 60% of the way through the game. There was one moment in the town where the frames were just not holding up, and I was afraid. I was like, oh, please, for the love of God, don't make this be the rest of the game. All of a sudden we hit a moment and the game can't handle itself anymore. To be honest, it was a 5-minute stretch, and that was it. Beyond that, this game is one of the prettiest. I'm telling you, okay? The cutscenes, even just generally when you're walking around, her hair, the flowers, just the streets, the fog. This is a beautiful freaking game, and oftentimes a beautiful freaking game in Unreal Engine 5, right, doesn't work half the time. At least for me, it worked for 7 hours and 55 minutes, and for 5 minutes it didn't work, which I give them massive props to, right? The music is another one. The music is so unsettling. And, it only plays around with, like, a couple different, like, there's a couple fighting songs, and it always got me where Disturbed, like, that's really the feel or the tone that it gives off. Is I always felt like I was doing something disturbing, or something disturbing was happening, because some of the ways that they, like, distort the guitar, like, plucks, and the main song, it plays in the beginning of the game, it plays several times kind of throughout. That song is creepy. It is so freaking creepy, but the music and the sound is so, and I think the sound actually is very important for a horror game, right? The enemies are so scary to look at, but then they're also scary in terms of the sounds they make. It's got a feel where you almost don't want to turn a corner. And then there's the story and characters, and you really can't get into that almost at all without giving something away, so you're just gonna have to go with like a general thing that I'm gonna say. But no, I really loved these characters. I thought they were, it depends on who you're talking about, but I thought some of them were very unsettling, the way they would look at you, or the way they would talk to you or about you or whatever. There's a lot there, but so many of these characters I think are really good. They are acted phenomenally. I played in Japanese. I'm really happy with that. I really am, because I think Hinako is so good, and I can't give it away. Like, there's another level there. There's another layer. Let me say that. There's another layer to her that I will say you see maybe one time, and it blew me away. And then there's a couple other times where she kind of elevates to, like, where she's just so sick and tired of everything that's going on. So there's a couple moments where, because she can be very reserved. There are, like, tropes, by the way, that I'm not a huge fan of still, where she never really asks what's going on. She does it maybe once, and that's a difficult scene to talk about because of spoilers. But, there's some times where characters say things or she sees things, and at no point does she ever say, like, hey, let's just pause and let's talk about what's going on here. They never really do that. And I think that's just a general trope. It's okay. But I just kind of realized a few times where it's like, can you just stop your friends and just ask them for a quick second what the F is happening right now? And maybe you can kind of get to the bottom, of what they're talking about, because you overhear them saying some things that kind of, like, doesn't make sense in the moment, right? And it's like, can we focus on that for a second and, like, figure that out? But it's got those elements to it, but it's really fun. Like, I love these type of games. I really do. I like games that are drip fed to you. I like games that you have to think, and there are those layers. I always talk about, Kingdom Hearts, Alan Wake. Silent Hill games are oftentimes like that as well, where you really have to think and you have to do it multiple times. And this game, I think, again, more than others, because this game, from what I understand, the first ending, no matter what you do, is the first ending. Like, there is only one ending. So it's like more complex, but not as, because you're forced into one, but they're going to give you a little, and then the complexities kind of layer on top of that, later on. So I loved it. I really did. It is such an experience. I played this game for like 5 hours straight towards the end. The first 3, I was kind of broken up, and then I just played it straight for like those last 5 hours and beat the game. So I really enjoyed my time. I think it's a haunting experience. It's one that makes you think and, trying to figure everything out. I really love. And then just those themes I don't really want to get into because of spoilers, but like what is actually happening that at least I feel is happening. I love it. It's a different thing you don't get all the time, and it's deep, and it just has all those kind of layers that I really love to see in video games. So there you go. I recommend it, but here's the thing. Again, I would recommend it if you're ready to do it more than one time. And if you're only going to do it one time, I don't know how much of an experience, especially money-wise. I do understand that's a big deal. Like they didn't give it to me, right? I spent $70 on this thing. $70 for 8 hours. For me, this was a great experience. Like, I'd be okay with that. I know many people would not, okay? And I can respect that. I know many people would not be down with that idea. The thing is, technically, you should probably play it like 3-4 times. So you would get 20, 30 hours for $70, but how many people are going to play a game through more than once? And that's the thing. I don't mean it to like joke around. Like, statistically, people don't even beat a game one time. They might even get 30, 40, 50% of the way through. So to expect them to beat it and then beat it 3 more times, that's a lot. That's a lot on an average audience. Now, a Silent Hill audience, I think, is a little bit more dedicated, and that's why maybe it would work, right? Maybe they could get away with it. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.